Basically, wishing you a good evening, wherever you are, and hoping that this would be um, a very interesting and interactive discussion. So, firstly, I decided that today I'm gonna do something that I've never done before. But before I do that, I just want to go back to really go back to my post this afternoon. Yeah, this afternoon. So I shared my post, and I was just looking. I mean, I logged onto my dashboard. I haven't done that for a while because I had a notification that popped up, and it was basically telling me that you know my Facebook is doing so well, and that I think 350% up from where I was the same time last year. And then I checked within the past 28 days, and I just realized that over almost a million people have logged onto my Facebook account to view my videos and whatever rubbish it is that I write and say. And I also realized that going back the past 90 days, it's been over 1.6 million views, and I thought that was really an achievement. So I just wanted to celebrate that. And most of the time, when you look at Facebook and you're logged on live, you realize that maybe you've got 100 and something people watching, but these are the people that actually get into the engagement. These are the people that actually delve into the Facebook live proper, and would comment and would do things. But um a lot more people are actually viewing, but they're not getting into it, so you don't see them on the screen. It just tells you, like, okay, right now it's telling me it's 47 people watching. But when I look at when I look at the views, I can see there's 252 people are already logged in and watching the program. So that's how it works. But it's quite interesting. So I just thought that was something I should do. Also, for the first time, when I'm doing Facebook Live, most of the time I have to have like my books. I would put my dictionary, my books. I would put, something. I look for a bowl, a box. I mean, I've used biscuit boxes and teens and stuff just to put my phone, you know, just get my phone stationed in a way where basically I could, people could watch and I could just be in front of the camera. But then my cousin in Switzerland sent me a gift. Well, she brought me a gift because she was here in England, and she gave me this beautiful, beautiful tripod, which is actually electronic. It's got lighting. It's got everything. It could actually follow me around the house. Motion detector, and I'm using it for the first time. I'm not using the motion detector; it's just stationed in one place. But basically, I just wanted to say thank you to her, to Julia. Really, this is one of the best gifts ever, and I'm happy. I'm glad. So, Julia, thank you so much. So that that was like the two kind of things I wanted to do outside this whole thing. Now, I'm gonna just delve in right into this, but it's telling me I'm not live anymore. I don't know if my phone is lying to me or not. I don't know what it is. It's telling me I'm no longer live. Is that correct? Can people just comment and just let me know if I am still on live? Because the other phone I logged onto, where I'm actually seeing the comments and things, is telling me that I'm not on live anymore. But this one is telling me I'm still on live. So can people just tell me if I am still here? And if you can still hear from me, just let me know. So I guess I am still here then. I'm just waiting. I've just turned off my phone, so I'm just waiting for my phone to turn on. And once my phone turns on, then I'll be able to tell and figure out exactly if I'm still not. Kindly, if anybody's sending me messages on Messenger, can you not do that until after my live program? Because I'm on live, and once the Messenger messages come in, the what I've noticed in the past is that the volume goes really down. I don't know why, but I'm not using Facebook directly to go on live, so it might be different this time around. So I'm just trying to log onto my phone, and once I log onto my phone, I'm going to start. And of course, we all know the topic for today is the Gambia Foreign Service. So we're going to go in depth, but specifically, we are going to talk about the letter that emanated from the Gambian ambassador to Turkey, Ambassador Al-Khali Conte, which was an open letter sent to the Minister of Foreign Affairs, Honorable His Excellency Dr. Mamadou Tangara. So basically, that's what this Facebook Live is about. Okay. So let's do that. So the first thing I want to talk about is I want to dispel, and I'm really going to attack the heart of so many conspiracy theories that are out there, but mostly cheap, very cheap and subtle propaganda. And most of these comments, most of these false narrative that is being bandied about, mostly on social media, and being carried by individuals, group of persons. In fact, the letter which I will substantively deal with in this live video, which is the letter from Ambassador Al-Khali Conte, sort of made reference to these what I would call blatant lies. And if anyone knows me or have been following me for a while, you would realize and understand that I say things as they are, as it is. And I've always said, in order to be able to be objective and in order to be able to speak on matters without delving into emotions or taking sides and be as objective as you can, it is always good to have a clean slate yourself. So, firstly, even before I get to these rumors, I think I need to make a disclaimer. So usually in Gambian social media circle or in Gambian political discourse, when people speak on issues, it's either one, they're searching for a job, they're so desperate they're looking for a job, or two, they have been bought or they have been paid. This is very prevalent. And if you're part of social media, Gambia social media space, on any discourse whatsoever having to do with our politics, with our governance, these are the sort of rebuttals that you have. So people would not respond to you substantively. They won't offer a rebuttal squarely on the issues that is being tabled or that is being debated or that's being talked about, but rather they come up with some cheap, very cheap and low, innuendos trying to insinuate that you're desperate and you're looking for a job, or you have been bought and you have been paid. So I thought I would kind of just put up a disclaimer right there now on the onset, even before I delve into all of these issues, to say number one, I am not desperate. I am not looking for a job. For those that have been following me, you should have realized that if I want a job today, in the Gambia, all I have to do is to enforce my ECOWAS court judgment, which clearly states that my right to work was violated and that I should be reinstated and that I should have my job back. So this is my right. So I would not need to go and beg. I would not need to curry favor. What I will need to do is to get an enforcement of that judgment and have the government of the Gambia, directly the public service, the PSC, the Public Service Commission, to respect that court judgment. I don't have to beg an individual. I don't have to curry favor an individual. So I am one individual that is not looking for anything. So when I am ready and when I want to, it is my inherent God-given right as a Gambian to seek any office in the Gambia that commensurates with my qualifications, experience, and expertise. It is my God-given right. And if I want to, I will explore it to the best of my potentials. And there's nothing that anyone, wheresoever, whatever your designation, that can stop that. It is my right as a Gambian to do. But just to put things into context, I live in England. I've been living here now nearly 8 years since I moved from Gambia. Well, seven years technically, because I was studying before that. So I didn't even consider myself living here at the time. I have developed a life here. I have a family here, my kids. I have a home. I'm not renting. I'm not staying in somebody's home. I'm not squatting. I live in my own house. I don't jump into buses and train. I drive my own car. I own my own car. And it's not that I'm bragging, but it's just because it kind of sometimes it's irritating where you hear people say, whenever you come up and speak on issues, and people will say, oh, he's looking for a job, or he wants something, or he's being paid. I can tell you something though, and I can make this crystal clear. I am one person. There's not a single Gambia government official, dead or alive, and I'm doing this publicly. My Facebook is not restricted to my friends only or to my acquaintances. My Facebook is public. There's not a single Gambian official, whether dead or alive, that can lift their hands up and say that Melville Roberts approached me and asked me for a favor. I have never done it in my entire life, and I will never do so. And if that Gambian is alive, all they have to do is to come up and say, no, he lied. He has asked me for a favor. He has begged me for something. Never in my life. I don't need anything from anyone. And I keep saying that I thank God that I have parents who took care of me and made sure that for the rest of my life, I would not be homeless. So even if I was not living in my own home in England and I go back to Gambia, I have a home. I have a house in Gambia that has been unoccupied for so many years. Not a single person living there. It's got everything that is habitable to let a person live comfortably. So I am not the one that is desperate. There's nothing that I'm looking for. There's nothing that I'm searching for. If there's anything I've asked of anyone, there are things that are my inherent right, things that are my legal entitlement. But I have never asked anyone for anything, and I will never ask. So I just wanted to make that clear. So when people speak and they think that when you speak, you're looking for something, that's because they've got nothing. And they feel everybody. So what the way they view things, their output to life, the lens by which they see things in life, it's a reflection of their character and their situation. It's a reflection of who they are as a person. It's a reflection of who they are as an individual and the character that they seek to show. So they believe that everyone would curry favor and everyone would look at things because they're gaining something or because they want something. They cannot even understand how a person would speak objectively on issues without taking sides, without being emotional, but just speaking to the heart of the truth, undiluted, in a respectful manner, within the parameters of regard and objectivity and civility, for that matter. So I just wanted to say that. Now, let's get to the heart of it. One, since 2017, when the government of Adama Barrow took over, one conspiracy that was being bandied about, or that has been bandied about and is still happening, is this fallacy, and I call it fallacy. And for me, I mean, you guys know I talk straight, and I challenge people all the time to come up with a rebuttal that would be opposed to what I am saying. So from 2016 to date, all we have heard is this rumor, which it has been repeated over time, consistently and constantly for such a long time, that it even begins to look as if it is the truth, that it is the real and right picture that is being painted. And that is this notion that the Honorable Minister of Foreign Affairs currently, Dr. Mamadou Tangara, was busy insulting and cussing, hurling insults at Gambian civil society, Gambian protesters in New York. But there's something that is unique about Gambians living in the age of social media. So, for example, I'll give you an example. When Fatou Camara was attacked in New York, we all saw the pictures. The videos are still there in the archives. We knew what happened. When Mamadou Sabali, the then presidential affairs minister, had an altercation in New York, we saw the videos. We saw the exchanges. It's there. It's on social media. It's in the archives. But consistently, there is this message that has been bandied about that, oh, Tangara was insulting protesters in New York. But not one single activist, not one single individual, not one single person in the entire Gambian social media space has been able to show not even a 2 seconds footage of where Tangara was seen hurling insults at Gambians protesting in New York. And I'm challenging people, I'm on Facebook Live, and I'm challenging anyone that has got evidence or record of that happening to actually bring it out on social media and say, you know what? I'm challenging Melville Roberts. This is Tangara insulting Gambian protesters in New York. I want it to come out. Because the truth is that never occurred. It never happened. It is the figment of imagination of certain group of individuals who want to portray this guy, because they've already labeled him a Jammeh enabler, and therefore to fuel their narrative, they have to come up with some conspiracy theory. But what is conspicuously absent, conspicuously and comfortably absent, is the fact that not one single individual is able to come out and say, hey, you know what? This is Tangara hurling insults at Gambian protesters in New York. You see the pronouncements of Jammeh? Everything Yahya Jammeh said, everything whatever minister is captured. Whether it's recording, audio, whether it's visual, it's all there. It's documented. But there's not a single Gambian over the years. Barrow has been in power since 2016, 2017 to now 2025. We have never seen a single footage out there that showed Tangara insulting Gambian protesters or Gambians in New York. So in short, it is a lie. It is a lie that is being propagated by people who have got no business, they've got no scruples, and the only objective is to fuel rumors and lies out of hatredness, out of jealousy, and out of vindictiveness. That is one. The second thing that we have to look at is logic. Be you an ambassador, be you a head of state, be you the Pope, be you a priest, be you an imam, whatever designation. If someone attacks you, me, Melville, or you yourself watching me, or the individuals that are talking, if it was their father, if it was their mother, their brothers, their sisters, even if it was they themselves that was being attacked, physically attacked, will you stand there and smile and give the person your cheek and turn the other way and tell them, okay, give me another slap because I'm the foreign minister? That is illogical. That's a fallacy. That's nonsense. That's rubbish. That's utter nonsense. Because we all know we will not even stand to see our fathers being attacked. We will not stand to see our mothers being attacked. Ourselves would not accept that. How many of us would accept that? And the issue in New York is documented. If my recollection is correct, I'll look at the comments to see and have a guide. But if my recollection is correct, it was an altercation between Falai Balde, if I'm right, and Dr. Tangara. And it was Falai that attacked Dr. Tangara physically in New York. And you expected Dr. Tangara to take his hands and fold it behind his back? What nonsense you guys talking about? That is what makes him a Jame enabler? That is what makes him a Jame enabler, because he defended himself. He acted in self-defense, which even the law permits. He should stand there and allowed to be kicked and slapped because he's the foreign minister, because he's walking on the Jame. Does that make sense? Would you allow your father to be kicked and slapped? And I'm referring to the individuals that are bandying this about. Would you allow your mothers to be kicked and slapped, your brothers, your loved ones, or even you yourself? Would you stand there in the name of being a foreign minister whilst you're being physically attacked? Whilst you're being physically attacked, and we all know the capabilities of Gambians. We all know how Gambians would tend to skip over the bounds and limits. And you expected the man to stand. The man acted in self-defense. If that is what is going to make him a Jame enabler, then so be it. So be it, for crying out loud. So be it. So be it. The guy has a right, an inherent right, to defend himself at all costs. And if you don't know, let me tell you today. Mr. Falai Balde, I'm believing that's his name. If I'm not quoting the wrong name, made a delegation. He had a delegation to go to talk Dr. Tangara with an imam to apologize for his actions. So when you speak about Dr. Tangara defending himself, why don't you also say, but Mr. Falai Balde actually went to Dr. Tangara and apologized, took elders in the community, took the imam to say sorry for his actions, to say sorry for how he acted. But you sit there and you criticize in an irrational manner, and you're expecting magic, you're expecting water to come out of a rock like he's not human. I don't know much about the Quran, but even Jesus Christ in the Bible, he got upset, he got angry when he went to the temple and he saw that people were using God's house, the temple where they should go and pray, and they were using it to sell, to bargain. He got angry. He took a whip and he whipped them and dispersed them. And he said to them, You are turning, the scripture says that my father's house will be a house of prayer, but you're turning it into a den of thieves, into a den of robbers. He whipped them and drove them out of the temple. So if Jesus Christ can react, can act in self-defense, defending his father's temple, defending the house of God, who is Dr. Tangara that he should sit down and accept being physically attacked by another man, all in the name of being foreign minister? That's absolute nonsense. There's nowhere that is stipulated. There is nowhere that is directed, because a foreign minister is also a human being. They've got feelings. They feel. So that is not correct. And that's a false narrative that's being bandied about. And we need to correct that. We need to let the masses know and understand the real occurrence that took place, and not the fallacy, not the rumor, not the lies that is being spread out there. If you want to attack the credibility of Tangara, do so squarely. Come up with things that are honest, things that are sincere, things that are true. He is human. He's not God. He's not a deity. He's bound to make mistakes. He's made mistakes. He's not infallible. But you cannot continue to harass an individual squarely because they walked with Jammeh. Our mothers and fathers walked with Jammeh. We had nurses and teachers that walked under Jammeh. We had police officers, immigration officers, prison officers that worked for Jammeh. If you say, why didn't Tangara resign? Why didn't those nurses resign? Why didn't those teachers resign? Why didn't those police officers resign? Why were they taking illegal orders? Why were they doing things that they knew their conscience would tell them that it was wrong, that they were not supposed to do that? Did you disband and ask that the entire Gambia police force should be disbanded? Did you say the entire prison services should be disbanded? Did anybody call for the entire immigration system to be disbanded? Aside of the mention by Ndeye Tafa Sose at the TRRC, was Dr. Tangara's name ever mentioned on any issues of human rights or atrocities against Gambians, against any individual? And I will address the issue of Ndeye Tafa Sose in a minute. Did anybody mention his name? Was he adversely mentioned by anyone at the TRRC? This was a public proceedings where people were indicted, where people were adversely mentioned, credible individuals, people of good standing in society, in our eyes, were mentioned. Was Dr. Tangara's name mentioned? Did anybody say Dr. Tangara suppressed them? That he violated their human rights? Did anyone? And I've said this, with the exception of Ndeye Tafa Sose, and I'm going to address that squarely today. It is high time we stop being a rumor monger, lie-spreading society and start speaking the truth. You see, the thing is, I feel this is the disconnect with Gambia. You don't have to love somebody to acknowledge who they are. You don't even have to like the person to acknowledge who they are. You just have to be honest and truthful. That's all you have to do. You just have to be honest and truthful, period. Because if you're honest and truthful, you will be able to be objective. And if you're objective, you will see the good in every individual. What happened to the overwhelming majority of Gambians that continue to vote for Yahya Jammeh? Who can you pinpoint and say these individuals were the greatest enablers of Jammeh? Because they continued to give him a legitimate right to rule. You can tell me the elections were stolen, the elections were rigged. Let's assume that. let you know, just for the purpose of this conversation, let me agree with you that yes, the elections were rigged. Jammeh rigged all these elections. But what happened in 2016? When Jammeh lost the election, when every Gambian accepted unanimously, both Gambians in and out of the country accepted that it was one of the freest and fair election in Gambia's history. What happened? What was the margin between the winner and Jammeh? It was 18,000 votes. 18,000 votes. So what happened to the hundreds of thousands of people that believed in the leadership of Jammeh? Are these not the biggest and greatest enablers of Jammeh? The people that continue to give him legitimacy? The segment of society that continue to give him authority by their power to lead Gambians and make decisions on their behalf? Are these not the greatest enablers of Jammeh? So why would you single out one man with his singular vote, who probably was not even in the country during elections, to vote Jammeh into office? But you continue to castigate this man, continue to castigate this individual because he walked under Jammeh. Some of you, your fathers walked under Jammeh until they were kicked out. So you are now saying, okay, I'm not an enabler. We know the history is there, the facts are there. Some of you, your mothers walked under Jammeh until they were kicked out. Some of them were kicked out because of, unscrupulous things that they got themselves involved in. Some stole, some were accused of theft, some were accused of fraud, some were so incompetent that even Jammeh did not want them to serve. And some of these individuals were the ones that turned to tell us that Jammeh is a dictator. But when it was rosy, when it was right, when things were going on okay, when it was normal, they saw Jammeh as a progressive leader. And some of these people are your parents, my parents, people that we are related to, people we know, who walk under Jammeh, who push Jammeh's agenda. These are not enablers. I see people who say, oh, we are in the struggle. When I was in the struggle, it's the best slogan for anybody to say. Well, we were in the struggle, the days of the struggle. But some of these individuals only left the struggle when they were kicked out by Jammeh. They didn't voluntarily resign. Even the ones that voluntarily resigned, they knew that they were being investigated. They knew things they did. Yes, you have the exceptions. You have people that have been from the onset have been in opposition. They agreed that they would not be party to dictatorship. They agreed that they would not share or be part of the ideals of Jammeh. Respect to them, kudos to them. But it is their decision. You cannot castigate the other man for making another decision. In a democratic society, in a democratic space where people have a right and a choice to make. You can't preach democracy that is subjective. That should be accepted when you feel like it. Your democratic ideal shouldn't be premised on what works for you and what is right in your own frame of mind. People have a right to choose. People have free will. That's what democracy is all about. And that's why they said democracy is messy. It is premised on an enlightened nation. People that can make choices, people that can decide on themselves. What has Tangara done that other ministers that served for 22 years under Jammeh didn't do? What didn't they do? It don't have to be a minister alone. What happened to the directors that man the parastatals, heads of institutions, governors? What happened to these individuals? I dare even say imams and priests. that would get to the State House and celebrate Jammeh. Day in, day out. Every religious feast, they were there. They didn't condemn atrocities. They didn't condemn his human rights abuses. They prayed for him. They prayed for him. Yalla lafi yalla yaga. That's what they did. We saw it on television. Even the last Eid before Jammeh left power, we saw the religious leaders go into that State House and prayed for Jammeh. So what nonsense do we talk about when we call and we try to designate just one individual as a Jammeh enabler? Because he held a high office. He was Minister of Foreign Affairs. He was an ambassador, a permanent rep to the United Nations. So he is Jammeh enabler? Where are all the Jammeh enablers? Where are the imams that visited State House day in, day out and be given bags of money? And would praise Jammeh and would pray for him for longevity. Where are they? Are they not enablers? Are they not part of our society? Are they not still our venerable, respected leaders in our society? Have some of them not even transformed and are now doing the same thing with Barrow and praying for Barrow and visiting Barrow? Is it not the same people? Is it not the same crowd? So how can one man be castigated eternally for walking on the Jammeh? What proofs do you have? What tangible proofs do you have to say that this man violated the rights of Gambia? I see weak arguments that he was the foreign minister, that he was selling Jammeh's ideas. Of course, that's the job of a foreign minister. And I tell people sometimes, I said, when you argue with certain people, you don't even have to try to move away. But that is his job. That is his TOR. His job is to sell brand Gambia. His job he is the interface between the Gambia and the international community. That is his job. He wasn't selling Jammeh atrocities. He wasn't selling Jammeh's human rights violations. He was selling country Gambia, where you and I are part of today. That's what he was doing. That's what he was doing. And rightfully so. Rightfully so. Why didn't anybody call the Minister of Education back then a Jammeh enabler? Why didn't people say to the Secretary General that actually circulated the memo that every woman in Gambia should cover their heads and wear a head tie? Why was that person not labeled a Jammeh enabler? Was that not a violation of the rights of Christians, of Christian women who did not want to cover their heads, did not want to wear veil? Was that not a blatant violation of their rights? Was this not propagated by the then Secretary General and head of the civil service, writing on the orders and instructions of Jammeh and asking every Gambian woman to wear a veil and go to work? Was that not a gross human rights violation? Why was that individual not tagged as a Jammeh enabler? The people that declared that Gambia was an Islamic state, not giving credence to the constitutional dictates of the country that said that Gambia was a secular state. Were they not tagged? Why were they not tagged as Jammeh enablers? In fact, they celebrated it. We know some religious sects celebrated that Gambia was finally an Islamic state. And that is the truth. Were these people not Jammeh enablers? Are these people not the same people that we call in our functions to pray, to lead, to speak on issues of morality and spirituality? Were these people not Jammeh enablers? Was Jammeh in the streets of Gambia arresting people? Was Jammeh in the courts prosecuting people? Don't we have staff at the Ministry of Justice that work under Jammeh that are still working under Barrow? Did they not prosecute? Did they not take matters to court? Did they not litigate on the instructions of Jammeh? Are these not Jammeh enablers? Are these not Jammeh enablers? So spare us, man. Just spare us with this Jammeh enabler, whatever it is. It's absolute nonsense. You're talking about Jammeh enabler. I don't understand. Constitutionally, and no disrespect to him. No disrespect whatsoever intended. I'm just drawing an inference. There's nowhere that anybody can see me talk about Fabakary Tombong Jatta. No, I don't do that. I don't speak about the gentleman. I don't speak about the man. I respect his authority. I respect the fact that he's not a two-faced person. He continued to support that which he believed in, even though some of us don't believe it or some other people don't believe it. He's not a two-faced person. So I don't talk about him. But if we want to speak on enablers, the very National Assembly, the third arm of government, is headed by Fabakary Tombong Jatta. If you don't know your constitution, this is the man that is third in line. Third in line to the seat of the presidency. If President Barrow something was to happen to President Barrow today, and for any reason the vice president couldn't take over, Fabakary Tombong Jatta becomes the head of state of the Gambia. He becomes the head of state of Gambia. Is there a Gambian, dead or alive, that one can say is more of an enabler than Fabakary Tombong Jatta? But was his name mentioned at the TRRC? Did anybody come and say Fabakary Tombong Jatta gave an instruction that somebody should be killed, that somebody should disappear? No, but he supported Jammeh. He supported Jammeh. That's what he believed in. For crying out loud, that's his democratic right. Boy, there are people that even worship the devil. They worship Satan. It is their right. You cannot impose yourself and your beliefs on others, and yet still you preach democracy. It's wrong. It's false. Now, let's get into the issue of Nate Tafar Sose. You see, my experience in life has taught me one thing. And that is never, never, ever believe solely a one-sided story. Every single story out there, there are two sides to it. And every story out there, regardless of the messenger or the carrier of that story, it has to be tested. The veracity of such testimony must be tested. Let's look at this. So, based on I'm not attacking the person of Nate Tafar Sose. I don't know her, never heard of her until she testified before the TRRC. Have nothing to do with her. I will not speak disparagingly about her. Not my business. Don't know her. But I would look at the testimony because that is public record. We will delve into her testimony. We'll look at the facts. We'll look at what is plausible and what is not. If you guys give me just 1 second, just 1 second. I'm so sorry. I apologize, but so I've got my auntie who lives with me, and she's not feeling too well, so I had to check up on her. She was calling me. I'm sorry. I apologize, but I'll just go back to where I was. So basically, we were talking about um data for source, and so yeah, so her testimony was Dr. Tangara was sent as a special envoy by Jammeh to go to Mali to get her extradited to the Gambia. Now, we're going to look at this quietly on the face of the testimony before the TRRC. Ndai Tafa Sose, a sole individual, one person, one individual, the president of the Republic of the Gambia, sent a special envoy to Mali to say that Ndai Tafa should be extradited to the Gambia. There was no indictment on Ndai Tafa Sose. She was not declared a wanted person in the Gambia. There was no criminal investigation ongoing where she was declared as a wanted person, either by the police or the Ministry of Justice or the Gambia. There is absolutely no extradition treaty between the Gambia and Mali. None, zero. For you to ask for the extradition of a person, an individual, from one state to another, we all know there has to be, according to law and policy, that there is an extradition policy or treaty, rather, between that asking state and the state where the person, the third party that is wanted is. And that is the supplying state. There is no treaty, no extradition treaty between the Gambia and Mali. So it would have been idiotic for Jammeh to send the Minister of Foreign Affairs, who is also aware that there is no treaty between the Gambia and Mali, to go and ask for the extradition of another person when the Minister of Foreign Affairs knows quietly that there doesn't exist an extradition treaty. Remember, Mali is a state. Mali is a state that respects international law and procedures. This was not Melville going to ask Modu or Jahmali or give me that. You said that the minister went to Mali to get you extradited to the Gambia, but there is no extradition treaty between the Gambia and Mali. That's one. But let me tell you what's point number two. Extradition requests are never done by the Minister of Foreign Affairs or the Foreign Ministry. It's always done by the Ministry of Justice. And what I'm telling you is not gospel, it's not rocket science. Look it up. Look it up. Just search. Some of you that are Google masters, just go on Google. Just search. Just search. These are international law mechanisms. An extradition treaty is not just within the confines of one state. An extradition treaty is the combination of states that come together and agree on a framework, that agree on a law, on a pathway, on a policy that governs this. And we all know the body responsible for this is the Ministry of Justice. It is only the Ministry of Justice that can request for an extradition of any Gambian abroad. And it must be based on a solid treaty that exists between that country and the other country. Thirdly, if you know how international law works, if you understand the relationships between state actors, do you think even whereas remotely that such an occurrence happened, you think the Malian government will go to an individual and tell him that your government is trying to extradite you to the Gambia? You think that's how it works? Come on. Even if you don't respect Gambia, you say Gambia, everybody talks, anything happens in Gambia, that's fine. I could take it. Nobody respects Gambians anyways. The Gambians that talk about Gambians don't have any respect, any iota of respect for procedures, for norms, for diplomatic channels. They don't even understand these things. They think Gambia is a free-for-all, that anything works. So fine, let's take it that way, that nothing works in Gambia. But do you think the Malian government is so watered down, is so rubbish, is so mediocre that they would call Tafa Source and say, oh, madam, or Dr. Tangara was here, or she came to seek your extradition to Gambia? How stupid, how illogical. Lolu, do digger, Lolu, fenla. Let's be honest, that's a lie. That is a lie. And maybe Tafa is not lying. Maybe Tafa was told that, but whoever informed Tafa that person is lying. Maybe give credit to her. Maybe she was wrongly misinformed. But whoever said that to Tafa Source, that person is lying. That's not how governments operate. And we know that. No government operates in that manner. None, zero. There are people that Jammeh wanted more than Tafa Source. Why didn't he extradite them to Gambia? Why didn't he seek that? Why didn't he ask or try to seek their extradition to Gambia? There were people that staged coup against Jammeh. There were people that were culpable of treasonable acts against Jammeh. Why were they not extradited? Why didn't they seek their extradition? What was so special about Tafa Source? I mean, certain things is logic, Gambia. It is common sense. Nobody has to convince you otherwise. People that tried to kill Jammeh, they escaped the country, they left. Jammeh didn't seek their extradition because Jammeh is not a fool. Jammeh knows that extradition are based on certain criteria that has to be fulfilled by the asking state. You can't request for the extradition of a person if the crime that they have committed is going to attract the death penalty. It's against international law. Do you know that? Are you aware? If you're bringing them for a crime to serve life imprisonment, you cannot extradite them. Do you know that? Are you aware? So extradition is not just a blanket. Even where the treaty exists, there has to be certain criteria that must be met by the asking state. Was Julian Assange not here in the UK? Why was he not extradited? Just because there's an extradition treaty that exists between England and his country? That's not how it works. So that is not true. That is false. Why would Jammeh send an envoy to go and seek the extradition of one person? That's not true. And the sad thing about Gambia, the sad thing about this country of ours is that woman gave a testimony. One woman's word with no shred of evidence, no circumstantial, corroborative, no tangible, no real solid evidence whatsoever, but we take it as blanket that it is gospel because it is Netafa, because she appeared before the TRRC. What nonsense! What nonsense! Somebody just asked the question. Let me address that. How can that extradition be possible without the leading of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Mr. Melville, because diplomacy has to be center stage? That is false. What you just said, Amadu, is false. The only time that the Ministry of Foreign Affairs will come into play when there is an extradition request is for facilitation. Is the facilitation of that request from the receiving state, Gambia, to the state that request is going to. That's the only role that the Ministry of Foreign Affairs will have to play. Because the treaty is already there. The treaty is the framework that governs the extradition. The Foreign Affairs is not the police. The Foreign Affairs Ministry is not the Ministry of Justice. They don't do the investigations. They don't know what is the crime. They don't know what is the offense. The Foreign Ministry does not declare that person wanted. The Foreign Ministry does not file an indictment in court. The Foreign Ministry is not part of the substantive request. That is solely within the purview of the Justice Ministry. The Foreign Ministry can only facilitate the transmission of that request. Just like the Foreign Ministry will transmit all other requests from all other departments, including the State House. Because the Foreign Ministry is the specialized agency, the specialized ministry within government framework. It is the interface between the government and outside countries, outside parties, and the international community. So the Ministry of Foreign Affairs will facilitate, but it will not substantively be the bearer of the request. So I hope I've addressed that and I've answered that. I just looked at my screen and I saw that question. So no, it's not everything. So let me explain the way the Foreign Ministry works. The Foreign Ministry is the bridge between the Gambia and the international world. Whatever. Let me give you an example. If you notice, I never mention about things that I did in my capacity as a staff of the Foreign Ministry. I'm not only doing that, I don't do that, not because I can't do it, but because I'm a person who believes in confidentiality, and I believe that is integrity if you can do that. So I don't mention anything. There's no Gambian that could say that, oh, Melville said this happened in the foreign. No, I don't talk about it. It's not like I was not there. I was there. It's not like I didn't see things. I saw things, but I don't. I talk to people from all walks of life. But nobody knows or nobody can tell you, oh, Melville came out in the public and said he spoke to this person and he spoke to that person. I'll never do so until I go to my grave. It is called integrity. But I will break one rule today. And the reason why I will break this rule is because it is already public record. The reason I will break the rule is because it is public record already. When the TRR, when the Janet Commission started, former President Jammeh had to be served a summons to appear before the Jammeh Commission. And Amadou, I am trying to get into the heart of your question by giving you a scenario, an example of what happened. We all know the Jammeh Commission was not under the supervisory authority of the Foreign Ministry. The line ministry that was directly connected with the Jammeh Commission was the Ministry of Justice and Attorney General's chambers. But to explain the point further, when former President Jammeh, who lives outside the Gambia at the time and was living in Equatorial Guinea, was meant to be served a process for him to appear before the Jammeh Commission, it was sent to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs for further transmission. And I was the individual that was minuted that file to deal with it. The Jammeh Commission did not ask the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, do you know where former President Jammeh lives? Do you know his address? Do you know how you're going to facilitate this? No, they did not ask. They did not want to know. This was a substantive summons that was coming from the Jammeh Commission. It's got nothing and had nothing to do with the Foreign Affairs Ministry. We did not even know at the time that Jammeh was being summoned. I received a file that was hand-delivered from the Jammeh Commission. And by then Burst minuted it to me to handle it and facilitate. We had no permanent mission at the time. I don't know if it's different now, but at that time, we had no representative in Equatorial Guinea. The Gambia had none. And I remember when going back to my boss, and I sent the file back. I drafted a response and sent the file back to the Jammeh Commission to ask them to say that the file that came asked us to facilitate to former President Jammeh, but there was absolutely no address. And how was it that they expected the Ministry of Foreign Affairs to facilitate such a transmission of sermons by substituted service? And they wrote back to me asking that the Foreign Affairs Ministry, of course, in that letter I mentioned that we do not have a representative, a Gambian representation in Equatorial Guinea. And they wrote back to me asking the Foreign Ministry by extension, of course, I was the officer in charge of that file, that we should use diplomatic channels to ensure that former President Jammeh was served. And after consultations with my boss, then the permanent secretary, we facilitated that transmission via another country with close proximity to Equatorial Guinea that we had representation in. And that was how that was served on former President Jammeh. Whether he received it or not, whether they knocked on his doorstep, I don't know, so please don't ask me. So that is the interface. That process was not emanating from the Foreign Ministry. That was a purely Justice Ministry or purely Jammeh Commission process. But only the Jammeh Commission couldn't circumvent the Foreign Ministry to ensure that that was served. And if there was an extradition request, that request would not be put to the Foreign Minister. The extradition request would be put to the Justice Minister to prepare the process of extradition, and it would be served on the Foreign Ministry to facilitate its transmission through diplomatic channels. So that is not true. And I'm hitting the very heart of that testimony. And I would only entertain such wild assumptions if there is a shred of evidence attached. But we know there is none. Now, let's get into another issue. What I'm trying to do is, I'm not even getting into the letter, the exchange of letters, and the minister's pronouncement at the, is it Mansakunda town hall or whatever you call it. Let's get into another issue. You know how this particular man, this minister, this sole minister, is consecutively and constantly being attacked on social media, labeling him a Jammeh enabler. But we had the Jammeh Commission. We had the Jammeh Commission. To date, we're fighting for answers from that commission. The greatest enablers of Jammeh, appeared before that commission. Was Dr. Tangara ever indicted for stealing one Gambian dalasi from the Jammeh Commission, by the Jammeh Commission? So when we talk about things, why don't we also talk about the people that work in that system? In that system that managed to maintain some sort of integrity. Why can't we also do a holistic evaluation of the entire character of the person? We saw people that had no business in financial transactions dealing for President Jammeh, collecting money, receiving sums, thousands and thousands of dollars, hundreds of thousands of dollars, millions. Why was Tangara not indicted by the Jammeh Commission for one Gambian dalasi as a serving foreign minister with direct proximity to Jammeh? What does that tell you about the character of that person? What does it tell you about the character of that person? And like I just said, and I'm going to say again, Dr. Tangara's name was only mentioned once in the entirety of the TRRC commission. And he was a serving state minister. What does that tell you? Is he the greatest enabler of Jammeh? Is he the greatest enabler of Jammeh? We saw even drivers, messengers being engulfed in the transmission of funds of so much money, Gambian taxpayers' money. But that didn't happen with Tangara. It didn't happen with Tangara. He was never mentioned. That's the fact. So whilst you celebrate things, why can't people be objective and say, yes, he worked for Jammeh. Yes, he worked under Jammeh. He was his foreign minister. But nobody called him at the Jammeh Commission there. And he was a serving state minister. What does that tell you? Is he the greatest enabler of Jammeh? Is he the greatest enabler of Jammeh? We saw even drivers, messengers being engulfed in the transmission of funds of so much money, Gambian taxpayers' money. But that didn't happen with Tangara. It didn't happen with Tangara. He was never mentioned. That's the fact. So whilst you celebrate things, why can't people be objective and say, yes, he worked for Jammeh. Yes, he worked under Jammeh. He was his foreign minister. But nobody called him at the Jammeh Commission there. Nobody called him at TRRC there. Can we not as a society, can we not as a people say that? It means we're disingenuous. It means we're hateful. We're not honest. We're hypocritical and we're not truthful. Some of us, our hearts are black with envy and jealousy. Why can we not also say that? Why? And the reason is because he is as clean as a whistle. Clean as a whistle. The only thing that Gambians can say and point to him is that he worked for Jammeh. But who did not work for Jammeh? Who did not work for Jammeh? In fact, in all honesty and truth, the greatest opposition to Jammeh were people that worked for him that he kicked out. They turned out to be the greatest opposition to Jammeh. We have even seen people that were kicked out by Jammeh. They supported Jammeh, kicked out by Jammeh. They became an opposition. Jammeh rehired them. They became Jammeh enabler. Jammeh kicked them out again. They became an opposition. And Jammeh rehired them again. They praised Jammeh and they were kicked out again. We saw that and they're there. We're seeing them today, every day. The records are there. The records are there. Stop the nonsense. Stop the fallacy. Stop the lies. You keep saying, oh, he attacked us. He insulted us. You've not produced a damn shred of evidence to support that. Not one. Not one single shred of evidence to support that narrative. And yet still you speak on democratic ideals. You're blaming people with no evidence. You're castigating people with no evidence. Because of bitterness and hate. Because he worked with Jammeh. So Jammeh was a legitimate president. Legitimate president. Voted into office by an overwhelming majority of Gambians. And every Gambian had the inherent right to work with Jammeh. Working with Jammeh does not make a person bad. Working with Jammeh does not make an individual bad. In fact, what we have just seen by the way funds were handled from the Jammeh Commission can tell you that some of us are capable of being worse than Jammeh. We just did not have the wherewithal. We did not have the allowance. We did not have the space. But some of us are worse than Jammeh. But we will come to the Jammeh Commission another day, where we will see people diverting things, properties into their girlfriends' names, into their family members' names, into their kids' names, selling them for pittance. Are these people not worse than Jammeh? Because remember, we are no longer talking about Jammeh assets, because the commission has established that these things did not belong to Jammeh. So what are they? They are state funds, state properties. Yet still it was diverted into the pockets of the very same people that attacked the credibility of Jammeh. What does that tell you about the average Gambian? But nobody can tell me a single thing that they can say, Lee, Tangara, Mokosacha. Tangara took this amount. Tangara did not retire this impress. Tangara did this, Tangara did that. In the entirety of everything you have heard about Jammeh and Jammeh's administration, not one single human being can say this man stole a single thing. For me, Mel, yeah, that is what I see in this man. And that satisfies me. Nothing else. Nothing else. As a state minister, as a foreign minister, with direct access to the president, close proximity to the president, he never took advantage. Never took advantage to rob the average ordinary taxpayers of their funds. No, he did not do that. And I'll tell you what else this man did that Gambians don't know. Today, the democracy we are celebrating is as a result of the contribution of this man. I said this before. He didn't tell me. Tangara did not tell me. I didn't hear it from people, from Gambians. I sat in the University of Oxford and my colleague who was writing his thesis on the use of force in international law, a Ghanaian brother called me. We were having dinner together. And he said to me, Mel, I'm doing a survey and I want to speak to you. Would you be kind enough to be a participant? And I said to him, sure, why not? And he said to me, I'm going to send you some resources to read. And a Ghanaian coming from Ghana, writing his master's thesis in Oxford University, was writing about the brilliance and singular effort of one Gambian in the name of Dr. Mamadou Tangara. How this man occasioned and rallied the entire Security Council to pass a resolution on Gambia. You think if that was not done, Jammeh would have left Gambia? You think if that was not done, Jammeh would have left Gambia? Do you know the legal effect of the then Secretary General calling President Barrow, even before Jammeh acknowledged during the impasse to congratulate him? Do you know the effect of that in international law? Do you know what that is? Do you know the gravity of such a policy statement, of such a policy, of that action? Do you know what it is? Having the Secretary General of the United Nations, a membership of 193 odd countries, and other state actors calling President-elect Barrow and congratulating him. Do you know what that has as a force of recognition for Barrow? Do you know the theatrics involved in securing a Security Council resolution on the state to ensure the overwhelming voice of Gambians is heard and upheld? Whilst you're castigating this man, Tangara, the entire international community is praising this man. He had a population award. Do you think that award is just rubbish? You see, okay, this is what I've realized. Because the average Gambian is small-minded, because the average Gambian is not experienced, because the average Gambian is petty, they don't see and understand international recognition, such as recognition from the United Nations in such issues. A population award, averting disaster in Gambia, an award to show that one man stood out to ensure that Gambians were not displaced, to ensure that Gambia was not dragged into a civil war, that Gambia did not experience an internal unrest, that Gambians did not turn refugees in other nations. Do you know the magnitude, you understand the gravity of the actions of this one man? We are not celebrating him because we believe and have convinced ourselves that he's a Jammeh enabler. How many of us were not Jammeh enablers? The people that are talking about the struggle, were they always part of the struggle? Didn't they have a time of conversion? So even if Tangara was a Jammeh enabler, but when the votes came out to say that indeed Jammeh has lost, this man did not sit down and allow things to go. He did all he could. He rallied his colleagues overwhelmingly to ensure that the wishes of the Gambians were upheld. That is not ordinary. So this is a Gambia that should be celebrated. We know of other people that never ever left Jammeh until the dying moment. We know that Jammeh, when he left for Gambia, Jammeh did not leave alone on that plane. No. I was there at the airport when Jammeh left. And there was an entire delegation that left with him to Equatorial Guinea. Are those not the greatest enablers of Jammeh? But in a democratic space, following the rule of law, following democratic ideals, on what basis can Tangara not work for Barrow? How has Tangara been indicted? Aside of rumors, aside of lies, aside of hate speech, what has he done? You talk about Tangara. Didn't we have a permanent rep at the AU when Jammeh was in office? Didn't we have a permanent rep to ECOWAS when Jammeh was in office? Didn't we have ambassadors? Didn't we have ministers? Didn't we have ministers of justice, attorney general that worked under Jammeh? Why are these individuals not labeled as Jammeh enablers? By virtue of the job and the position they held. Why? The truth is we're selective. The truth is we're hateful. The truth is we're not honest. We choose who we want to castigate based on our understanding and our agenda. I've heard people say, but Tangara does not like speaking. And this is going to lead me to the letters. Tangara does not like to talk. Tangara does not come out and talk to the public. But he explained that a foreign minister does not talk a lot, shouldn't speak a lot. Do I agree with him? No, I don't. I believe we live in the age of technology, cutting edge technology. We live in the age of social media. We live in the age of information technology. And we live in the age where people want to hear their leaders speak to them. They want to know, they want to see, they want to feel. That is my position. Now, if you realize foreign ministers have got their Twitter handles all over the world, I mean, people are looking for their tweets because when the foreign minister tweets, that's a policy statement. When the foreign minister makes a pronouncement, it is a policy statement. It's got policy ramifications. So the foreign minister cannot just speak. So whilst you want the foreign ministers to just be blabbing and talking, the foreign minister cannot do that. Because the position of the foreign minister and he being a head of a specialized unit within the framework of government, he cannot just speak. Because the foreign minister's pronouncements have got policy ramifications. They show the pathway to government, and most of the time, when the foreign minister speaks, it can be attributable to the head of state and head of government, and it can also be a policy statement of government. That is what happens everywhere else in the world. So when you had the former foreign minister Jeremy Hunt in the UK, people waited to hear what Jeremy Hunt would say on a particular issue. People were not asking the prime minister. People did not want to directly hear what the prime minister would say because they believe that the statements, the pronouncement, the tweets, the Facebook post, the comment of Jeremy Hunt is a policy direction. It's a policy statement. It creates a perfect pathway to the position of government in that particular issue. So the foreign minister cannot randomly speak. Now let's look at what happened. So the foreign minister decided to speak. He appeared before the Mansakunda town hall. And the foreign minister said something that every Gambian is saying or has said. I have said it numerous times. I have come on here on my Facebook and I've said it numerous times. And let me make this very clear. The foreign minister does not feed me. The foreign minister cannot feed me. In fact, in all honesty, and this goes to the people that keep saying that people are looking for jobs, taking the depreciation of the dollar into account and taking squarely and honestly the exchange rate of the pound sterling with the dollar, wallahi, I can tell you authoritatively that maybe only the president of Gambia is earning as much as I have by way of an income every month. And that is the honest truth. Maybe only Jammeh, I don't even know how Jammeh is adding, but maybe only Jammeh is probably by way of income, my income generating activities, is maybe only Jammeh that is earning more than me in Gambia. And that is the truth. Yes, you can say I live in England, I have to pay my mortgage, I have to pay bills, I have to take care of my kids, I have to do this, I have to do that. But still, if you give me a job in Gambia, how am I going to take care of my kids? Then my kids don't live in Gambia. My son don't live in Gambia. I have commitments outside Gambia. So I hear people tell you, like every time I run, people go, oh, go back home, go back home. I'm like, go back home to what? So it's easy for a person of nothingness. They don't have nothing. They're probably renting a property somewhere. They're probably jumping on the bus to them tomorrow and they're driving a beat-up car. Yeah, you tell them go home, they can just pack and fold things and go home. I can't do that. I'm sorry, I can't. And that's my reality. I can't. I can't because I'm established where I am. I live in my own home. I live in my own house. That's the factual reality. It's not that I'm bragging. That's the truth. So yeah, I'm not speaking because, I'm holding brief for the minister. I'm not holding brief for the minister. I'm speaking the factual reality. I'm saying the honest gospel truth that somebody else wouldn't want to say because they're scared of being insulted. I don't care who insults me. I don't care what is said about me. At the end of the day, what matters is my conscience. And that's the only thing that bothers me. When I go to bed at night, I sleep. I don't care what somebody, very insignificant, irrational posts that people make about me and stuff. No, I don't care. Because the truth is, Gambians are not dummies. They know what the truth is. Their only deficiency is they are not presented with the truth. But when you speak truth to them, you break it down, they understand and they grasp it. That is what I have understood. And that's what I've realized. That it is because the loudest people in Gambian social media discourse are the people with the meanest of agenda. And because the people that know don't speak, most of the time, we have allowed consecutively for a long period of time, we have allowed a certain narrative to continue to thrive. But I'm telling you, when you dispel those narratives with facts, the average Gambian understands. The average Gambian, they understand. So I said this on, I think it was Pat Bojang's post when somebody said, job seeker. And I said to them, I'm sorry. It's not all of us that are begging for bread. It's not all of us that are bootlickers. Some of us don't lick ass. Excuse my language, we don't. We don't. If I go to Gambia, if I jump on a plane now and I go to Gambia, I can go to Fajara, I can live in Fajara, I have a room, I have a house there that I can go and live. I can go to Paradise Estate, I can live, I have a house there that I can go and live. Some of you can't even go into a hut when you go back home. And these are the people that would sit there behind their keyboards and telling you, oh, go home, go home. They ain't got shit to go to, excuse my language. I'm sorry, but I just have to be direct. They don't have nothing to go to. But these are the people with the loudest of mouth, thinking everybody's desperate, everybody's seeking, looking for a job, everybody's looking for a favor. If I go to Gambia now to take a job, except you want me to start stealing government money, how can I even I mean, Jaden's McDonald's trip for every day. Daddy, I want McDonald's. Daddy, I want pizza. Daddy, I want this. If you calculate that alone, it's a person's salary. It's probably a state minister's salary. You know how much it costs to take Jaden to Disneyland, to take him to go see Peppa Pig, to go on a tour. Do you know how much it costs? So you just tell some of us and say, oh, come home, come on. You think all of us are so desperate looking for a civil servant job in Gambia? You think that's what we're on about? You think that's what we're on about? You must be mental and be demented. You must be absolutely ludicrous to even think such. Some of us are not bootlickers, but I don't blame you guys, you know. You can only give what you have. You can't take water out of a rock. That's what some of you know. You wake up in the morning, you jump from one office to the other, stretching your arms and looking for what they will give you. So that's what you think all of us do. How illogical. So let's dive into the letter. So the foreign minister appeared and said something that we have all consecutively said, that the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, the Foreign Service, is being watered down, that is being made a dumping ground. And we see this by way of actions, by way of presses, and by way of statements coming from the executive. A person is no longer needed in a particular position, foreign service. A person is not wanted here, foreign service. A person is having issues here and there, a minister not working right with other colleague ministers, a certain ministry is underperforming, foreign service. The foreign service is not a dumping ground. That is the hard fact. It is not a dumping ground. In fact, the foreign service is the most specialized agency of every single ministry in government. You cannot make it a dumping ground. And that is a fact. The best of the best, the creme de la creme, these are the people that should make up your foreign service. When you see men and women of the Gambia Foreign Service, they should have a direct understanding and feel of what Gambia is. You cannot just jump into the foreign service of the UK with absolutely no expertise and skill in diplomacy, nothing by way of academic credentials in foreign policy, nothing by way of diplomatic etiquette, understanding protocols, diplomatic protocols, having an idea, a base idea of international law, international relations, relationships between states, having harnessed negotiation skills. You have no business in the foreign service. And that is why our foreign service is weak. That is why our foreign service is underperforming. That is why it's underperforming. And for the minister to come out on Mansakunda and say that the foreign service should not be used as a dumping ground, it should have occasioned an introspection from every single Gambian, every single staff of the foreign ministry to say, hey, boy, something is wrong. Because that's an existential reality. It's an existential reality. The foreign service was the pride. The Gambia Foreign Service was the beacon of hope in Africa. It was the beacon of hope in Africa. I always say, and I always give an example. When I joined the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, I already had 2 degrees to my name. 2 degrees to my name, and a bar certificate as a lawyer when I joined the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Now, that did not stop me. And I've said this over and over again. When I got into the ministry, I decided I wanted to learn. And I'll tell you this, and some of you know what I'm saying is gospel truth. The average Gambian civil servant is contented with wherever they are. Yes, some of them would leave for to do a master's, to do a PhD. But that is not all. When I joined the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. The first opportunity that came was to go to China for a training course in international law and international arbitration. Of course, the catch is when you go for these courses, you're not paid. Of course, you're paid your salary, but that's all you're paid. But what happens in the civil service is most civil servants are busy chasing podiums. So when you go for these courses that would develop you, that would make you a more grounded person, that would make you understand and develop and harness your skill, your expertise, they don't take it because you don't make money. And that is why I say not all of us are so desperate to make money. So I took these courses, and I'll tell you something, it has grounded me. I didn't stop at that. A training came out in Pakistan. I went to the Pakistan Foreign Service Academy because I wanted to learn. I am a person that when I speak, when I open my mouth, I want it to be in a place of authority. I want when I speak, I know what I'm saying. I want my pronouncements to be solid. I want the very foundations of my expose. When I make statements, when I do my analysis, when I talk on foreign policy, when I talk on diplomacy, when I delve into foreign policy, I want it to be grounded. I don't want to hide behind ChatGPT. I don't want to hide behind Google. I want to have some semblance of idea. I want to develop an expertise. I want to develop my skill, and that's what I did. That is what I did. And not only did these courses grounded me, but it exposed you to other participants. When I went to China, we had participants from about 28 different other countries. Some of them with more advanced diplomatic discipline. When I went to Pakistan, the Foreign Service Academy in Pakistan is second to none that I have seen. Second to none that I have seen. Was I paid for these trips? No. There were people who had the option to go, but nobody wants to go. Everybody wants to go to a statutory meeting where you will be paid $200 a day or 200 pounds per year, because everybody is chasing the money, but not developing themselves. They go to these meetings as empty as they are, and they come back more empty. And what does the Gambia gain in their participation in some of these meetings? Nothing. Because the expertise and skill is not harnessed. It's not built upon. It's not developed. I remembered, and the things I'm about to say, these people are alive. They are alive. I remembered I'm coming to the office on Saturdays to read all files. And sometimes P.S. Nyoguba would be in his office. We will come on Saturday and I will sit there, I'll go through all files to just study and understand diplomatic language. To see how these officers, this caliber of diplomats would write their note verbals. Their correspondences was of a different class. And I wanted to perfect my trade. I wanted to become a career diplomat. And I didn't want to be just any diplomat. I wanted to excel in what I did. And I remembered at some point when I had gotten to that level, and I've said this before, and he is alive. If you know P.S. Njoguba, the former permanent secretary, Minister of Foreign Affairs, he's on Facebook. Ask him. This was not the days of ChatGPT. This was not the days where you had AI tools helping you to write. I wrote a speech for the then foreign minister. And I will never forget, it was on a Saturday. I was in my office and Njoguba was in his office. I finished writing the speech. I printed it out. I took it to him. He read the speech. He came back to my office. He said, Mr. Roberts. I said, yes, sir. He said, did you write this speech? I said, yes, I did. He said, Mr. Roberts, he said, this is the foreign ministry. I don't want the minister to go and write something you copied from something. I mean, that was the time I remembered. If you remember the time when I think it was Michelle Obama's speech that was copied by someone, from First Lady or something. And I said to him, I said to him, P.S. Bar, I said, you can go over this speech yourself and you can go online. I said, no. I said, I've been doing my research for the past 2 weeks to write this speech. And up till today, there were statements that I made that I inputted in that speech that is attributable, and rightly so, to the then foreign minister. I wouldn't say some of it. But up till today, some of it is being said. I think even yesterday on the news, that particular phrase, that particular line, I sat down and I coined it in that office on that Saturday morning because I wanted to develop my skill. I wanted to learn. I wanted to know how things were done. I would go to the protocol department. I would sit with them. I would ask questions. I wanted to know, to understand the logistics behind their activities. I wasn't just comfortable that I had 2 degrees to my name, that I was a lawyer, and then I could just sit and attend meetings. No, I didn't do that. And I would always say, the reason why I left Gambia to go to Oxford was because I wanted to develop myself further. I knew in that year that I left to go and study. If I had stayed in the Gambia, you know how many statutory meetings I would have gone to. You know how many per diems I would have earned. I probably, at my role at the foreign ministry then, my position that I held, I would have been a deputy ambassador somewhere in any of our missions abroad, even an ambassador. That's what I would have been. But I wanted to build on myself, and I have absolutely no regrets. You talk to me about foreign policy, I'm grounded. You talk to me about international law, I'm grounded. You talk to me about diplomacy, I know exactly what you're talking about. You talk to me about negotiation skills, negotiation strategies, I know what you're talking about. Because I decided to arm myself. And this is exactly what the foreign minister is saying. That we need people with the required expertise and skill in the foreign ministry. You need people that understand diplomacy, that know what it is to be a diplomat, what it amounts to be a diplomat. I always give a story. Always give a story. So every Friday, people would go to work and everybody would wear haftan. And I said to myself, okay, the reason why this culture is prevalent in Gambia, where people wear haftan on a Friday, is because they're going to Juma prayers. So I am not going to Juma prayers on Friday. So I don't really have to wear a kaftan. So I decided on this Friday that I was going to wear my jeans. I wore a beautiful, my nice jeans, a lovely shirt, and I wore a beautiful brown leather slippers. For me, it was almost smart casual. And I said, it's a Friday. I'm going to work. Everybody's wearing kaftan. That's because they're going to the mosque. Why should I be forced to wear kaftan on a Friday when I'm not going to pray? So there I was with my beautiful, Levi jeans, my shirt. I went to work. As I was getting into the office, I met with P.S. Njoguba. Of course, we all know Njoguba is a seasoned diplomat, has been an ambassador, I think, in Paris and in Dakar. Very seasoned diplomat. He was trained by the finest. So he saw me in the in the corridor. He was like, "Hi, DPS, how are you?" I was like, "PS, I'm all right, thank you." And I went my way. I went into my office, locked my door, and I sat there. 30 minutes after I sat in my office, he came to me and he said to me, he was so urgent, so serious. And he said to me, GPS Robertson, can you come to my office? I said, yes, sir. I went to his office. When I went into his office, he took a file, sealed in a brown envelope rather, put it in a pouch, a foreign affairs ministry's pouch, and he gave it to me. And he said to me, Mr. Roberts, can you get one of the drivers? You have to brief the president. Exactly what he said to me. He said, you have to brief the president on whatever he said. I can't remember the exact topic or whatever he said, but it was something within my purview. And he said to me, you have to brief the president. The president is expecting you in about 15 minutes. So just get ready. And he was done. He just got out of his office and he left me, and I was just standing there. And guess what happened? The first thing that came to mind was my slippers. The first thing that came to mind was my slippers and my shirt and my jeans. I'm like, how am I going to go to State House, to the president, with my jeans and my shirt and my slippers? I went out to follow him, and he was like, Mr. Roberts, why are you still standing here? I said to you to talk to the drivers to take you now. They're waiting for you. And I started, stammering basically. And I was like, sir, I was like, I'm not, I can't go. I need to go to the house to change. So he's like, Mr. Roberts, are you here to work? I mean, I'm telling you with all seriousness, I was shaking. He said, Mr. Roberts, are you here to work? I've given you instructions. And I said, the president is waiting. So can you leave now? Boy, I was sweating profusely. How the hell am I going to go appear before the president to brief him with slippers, chara, and shirt? I went to my office. I was sweating. So not knowing the then Director General of Protocol, Jobate, I think Joguba had already gone to Jobate and had told Jobate whatever he said to Jobate. So Jobate came to my office, and he too was making it worse. He was like, he's like, if you go, when you're going, you can stop at the market and maybe see if you can buy one haftan or stuff like that. And I was like, what area of the market? But PS says I have to be there in 15 minutes. And he said to me, he said, I don't know. Can you not go and ask one of the drivers? Maybe you see, you can wear their kaftan. And I was like thinking to myself, how can I wear the driver's kaftan? How would it even fit me? And I was literally shaking. I was in tears. I was in tears. I was speaking. I said, can you not speak to him for me? Can somebody else not go? He said to me, PS, I can't talk to him. I was literally sweating. I got downstairs. I called my friend who lived in Banjul, then my friend. And I said to him, do you have like a shirt and trousers? And he said to me he was at the hospital, at the polyclinic or something. So as I went downstairs shaking, they didn't know what to. I was like, okay, this is it for me. My job is over because they're just going to kick me out. So as I went downstairs, the driver was already waiting, and he stood up there, and he said, Mr. Roberts. And I said, yes, sir. And he said, come to my office. And I went to his office, literally with tears in my eyes, shaking. And he said to me, you know why you were supposed to go to the president's office? I said, no, sir. You asked me to go and brief the president. He said, have you learned anything? And immediately it clicked. I said, yes, sir. He said, what? I said, I'm not properly dressed. And that was a real life, tangible experience that demonstrated that, yes, I felt I was properly dressed. I felt I was standing my ground, that I was proving my rights, basically. I was proving that I have rights to wear what I want. But then what he showed me was that as a diplomat, as a foreign service staff, I could be called at any time to do anything within the confines of my employment. And from that day, From that day, every foreign service staff would tell you, if they want to testify and speak truth, that there was not a more well-dressed man in that office than I am. I had my bow ties were on point, my neckties were on point, I dressed to kill. Yes, I would even wear three-piece suit to work because he taught me a lifelong lesson that I would pass on to generations yet unborn, even to my child. I went back into my office that day and I was so embarrassed. I sat there and I felt out of place. All of a sudden, me that thought I was wearing my designer jeans and shirt, me that thought I was on top of the world, that I looked better than people with their kaftan, I just realized all of a sudden that I was out of place. Throughout the entirety of that day whilst I was at work, I was not myself because I didn't feel right in my spirit. That is what a diplomat is all about. Now, so Tangara said what everybody is saying. He said that the foreign service cannot be a dumping ground. And he made reference to political appointees. And that is what I want to be the crux of what I am talking about with respect to Tangara's utterances or statement. Political appointees. Now, I am going to read a direct extract from the Foreign Service Regulations. So just give me a moment, let me pull it up. Just give me a moment, let me pull this up. Just a second. I just need to pull this up real quick. Yeah, there it is. I wanted to try and pin this, but what I'll do, I'll share it after a while. Okay. I'll share this. Okay. So this is the Foreign Service Regulations. And I'll read. A. It says all heads of mission and consuls general shall be appointed by His Excellency the President in consultation with the Minister of Foreign Affairs. So I will read this again. All heads of government, all heads of mission and consuls general shall be appointed by His Excellency the President in consultation with the Minister of Foreign Affairs. Now, why would... So we all know, the world all over, that ambassadors, ministers, consul generals are all political appointees. Now, even though it says consultation with the foreign minister, the appointing authority is the president. So the president has an inherent right to appoint all the ambassadors and high commissioners. That is his prerogative. It is his right. But in consultation with his minister. The reason being, the foreign minister might have some sort of technical expertise, some sort of technical know-how, and would be able to help the president arrive at his choice. But the appointing authority will always be the president. So there's no question about ambassadors. So like I said in my open letter to the minister, in Turkey to the ambassador, Alkali Conte, that I am certain that when the minister was speaking with regards to political appointments, he was not referring to ambassadors per se. He was not referring to ambassadors per se, because the minister is aware that ambassadorial positions, high commissioners, consul generals are at the pleasure of the president. So we all know these are political appointments. The president will appoint an ambassador with, a person he feels can support, can fuel his agenda. We all know that is the right of the president. So that's not in dispute. So I believe a person of Alkali Conte, being an ambassador, should not have been able to find himself in a situation where he took the words, misconstrued the words of the foreign minister, and gave it a personal meaning and drew inference that it was referring to him, that it was attributable to him, that the foreign minister was attacking a person of his standing as an ambassador. Now, the reason why I'm saying this is because the Foreign Service Regulation states that all heads of mission and consul general shall be appointed by His Excellency the President. So whether the president wants to appoint a monkey, a rabbit, or anybody else, that is his right. The Foreign Service Regulations is there to govern these things, and it says it is his right. He can only consult with the minister. And you know what happens in consultation. The minister can only advise. But at the end of the day, the final appointing authority is the president. No doubts about that. So let's go to point number 2. It says the permanent secretary, and that is the permanent secretary, Minister of Foreign Affairs, is charged with the responsibility of posting officers under the rank of ambassadors and consul generals, and for their transfer from one mission to another, or to recall them to headquarters. And this is going to be the basis of my analysis on these letters or the pronouncements of the minister and the subsequent response of Ambassador Conte. I will read it again one more time. It says the permanent secretary is charged with the responsibility of posting officers under the rank of ambassadors and consul general, and for their transfer from one mission to another, or their recall back to headquarters. Headquarters being the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Now, if you look at this thing, what does it tell you? I'm trying to see if I could go back to the comments real quick and see if people are interacting and commenting. What does it tell you? Now, what this tells you is that apart from ambassadors and consul generals, every other person in that mission abroad is there by virtue of the selection coming from the permanent secretary, Ministry of Foreign Affairs. But not only that, let's look at it again. Let's twitch it a bit. The first section says that the president will be the appointing authority in consultation with the Minister of Foreign Affairs. But when you go below the rank of ambassadors, from deputy ambassadors to the last person, it says it is the permanent secretary that makes these appointments, that sends these individuals into the foreign ministry, into the foreign service. But do you notice that it does not say in consultation with the Minister of Foreign Affairs? You see how cleverly the drafters of the Foreign Service regulation have crafted the regulations in such a way that the minister himself is a political appointee. The minister himself is a political appointee. So when the president is appointing an ambassador or a high commissioner or a consul general, he consults the minister of foreign affairs, who is also a political appointee. So you see how that particular office has a foundational basis of political appointments. It is purely political, absolutely political. You cannot take that away from it. It is a political office in consultation with another political appointment, being the minister. So the minister can give his advice politically based on what, by virtue of his position as foreign minister, feels that certain individuals, certain appointments can better fit a particular mission. But when it comes to deputy ambassador, when it comes to first secretary, second secretary, you realize that every staff manning that mission is appointed by the permanent secretary, Ministry of Foreign Affairs. But the permanent secretary will not consult, or in this particular provision, does not have to consult the minister in these appointments, because the rationale, the reason, in French they say the reason d'etat, the objective, the mischief of this regulation is to take away political infiltration into that cadre of the foreign service. So that the people that are below the ambassadors are people that are emanating from the technical staff, the technical expertise and experience from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, without any political interference of any sort. So when you have the political appointee, who is the ambassador, but the deputy ambassador would come from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, who is handpicked by the permanent secretary, Ministry of Foreign Affairs, who is that person's boss, that person's supervisor. And that person, who is the permanent secretary, understands the strength, the weakness, the capabilities, the abilities of this particular individual, and can identify the mission that this particular individual will best serve Gambia's interest, with absolutely no political lens. Their business is to ensure and propagate Gambia within the confines of their technical expertise. So when you have a political appointee, the ambassador, regardless of how clueless, you have a solid structure in place from seasoned career diplomats, who the permanent secretary who interacts with them on a day-to-day basis understands and knows. The Minister of Foreign Affairs, by virtue of his rank as the minister, technically, theoretically, might not have that sort of interaction to know the staff of the foreign ministry, because the minister works directly with the permanent secretary, and the permanent secretary works with other staff, including deputy permanent secretaries and directors and force secretaries and all, and what you call them. So the person that would best be placed would be this person who is the permanent secretary. Now, when Tangara was saying that political interference. Now let us look at what is prevalent. Under President Barrow's government, and that is the truth, we have an ambassador that's a political appointee. We have a deputy ambassador, it's a political appointee. You have a first secretary, it's a political appointee. You have a councillor, it's a political appointee. You even have drivers who are political appointee. How can that mission move and go forward? And most of these political appointees are people that have absolutely no affiliation with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. They are not home-based staff. So when you have a political appointee, and I give example, and I will dare to call her name because she is my friend, and she knows she's somebody I respect. Rambo is a person I respect. But the truth must be told and must be said squarely when it is meant to be said. Not because you have friends. You have a mission like South Africa. Lucky for us, we have a Fatoumata Jahum-Pasise who has got vast experience in governance. She was Speaker of the National Assembly. But assume that Fatoumata Jahum-Pasise was not that person, that caliber of person with that experience. Now you have a mission in South Africa, and you have a Fatoumata Jahum-Pasise as the ambassador. And then you have Rambo Jatta, who has never worked in the foreign ministry, as her deputy. Then you have a first secretary who has never worked in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. And you have a councillor who has never worked in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. I'm giving you examples. I'm not saying that's what it is. Maybe the first secretary worked, or maybe he doesn't, I don't know. But you shouldn't ordinarily. Rambo's position is a technical position that should come from the cadre of diplomats, of trained policy analysts, of trained foreign policy gurus, of trained diplomats with experience and skill that have been in the foreign ministry, well-grounded, understand how the foreign ministry operates, understands the objectives of the foreign ministry, understand the foreign service objective and goals, and knows what the foreign mission of the Gambia is. So when the minister, who's a political appointee, for whatever reason is struggling, you have her deputy to hold the fort and push things in the direction where it should go, because they are solid, grounded technocrats. And that is what the minister was referring to. Common sense tells you that. Logic tells you that. I know instances where you have a situation of the blind leading the blind. You have an ambassador who's new. You have a deputy ambassador who's new. You have a first secretary who's new. Who is putting who through? And we are saying the appointment of Rambo, for example, I'm sorry, Rambo, if you're watching, you know how much I respect you, but I'm just using this as an example. Of course, Rambo, we all know, is a seasoned person who's been in governance, so he kind of understands. But let's assume it wasn't, I'm giving that example, but let's assume it wasn't Rambo and it wasn't Fatoumata Jahum-Pasise. It was not people who have the knowledge and skill, and it was just a purely political appointment. Is that not an absolute disaster? And is that not a burden on the Ministry of Foreign Affairs? Where Rambo probably wouldn't even understand diplomatic notes, diplomatic etiquettes, would not understand the protocols that should be in place. So who would be directing who? A brand new ambassador with no diplomatic experience? Navigating the waters of diplomacy in South Africa? With a brand new deputy ambassador, Rambo, and these two are political appointments, no technical expertise within that area. That is what we're talking about. And that's what we're saying is wrong. And it's not only wrong, it's a violation of the Foreign Service Regulation, because only the permanent secretary can appoint. And why is it that the permanent secretary can appoint? Because you know that the permanent secretary does not have the authority to appoint outside the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. The president can appoint from outside the Ministry of Foreign Affairs because that is a political appointment. So the ambassador can be a rabbit. The ambassador can be a rat as long as the president is happy with that. But what we are saying, when it comes to the deputy ambassador, when it comes to your technical staff, your first secretary, when it comes to your counselor, when it comes to your second secretary, when it comes to your financial attaché, these are people that should be grounded and should understand diplomacy, should understand foreign policy, and should be able to sell and represent Gambia in that mission. Because not only are they there in that mission, but they have to be able to maximize the potentials and bring tangible returns back home. The mission is not just there as a face. The mission is the face of Gambia, selling brand Gambia to that particular sector, that particular area, that particular geographical region of the world, and bringing back tangible returns. That is why you have diplomatic presence. It's a matter of give and take. And this is what we're saying. Now, the minister says that he was definitely in place to say that. But when you, the ambassador, responded openly, attacking the minister, attacking the credibility of the minister, you validated the pronouncement of the minister because it showed that you lack diplomatic etiquette. It showed that you don't understand foreign service navigation. Because even if the minister, even let's assume that the minister said something that shouldn't have been said, you as an ambassador should never have publicly come out to attack the credibility of your minister. Now, assume Alkali Conte, that the president appoints Dr. Tangara as an envoy to Turkey. Let's assume that in this coming week, something comes up and President Barrow decides that, you know what, Mr. Tangara has to go as a special envoy to Turkey to speak with the president on behalf of to speak with the Turkey president on behalf of President Barrow. You, Alkali Conte, as an ambassador, would have to present Dr. Tangara to the president as the permanent rep in Turkey. How would you feel? How would you feel to present the foreign minister as the permanent rep, as the ambassador, to the president of Turkey after your scathing letter of rebuke, of chastisement, of even accusations that are not grounded on anything that is fact? Your foreign minister is your boss, is your supervisor. You are appointed by the president in consultation with the foreign minister. That is why that provision is drafted and crafted in that manner. Yes, Barrow is your boss. President Barrow is your appointing authority. But the chain of command dictates that the foreign minister is your supervisor. You don't come out as an ambassador to attack the credibility of your foreign minister, regardless of what it is. It shows you lack diplomatic etiquette. It shows you're not grounded in diplomacy. It exposes your limitations as an ambassador, as a diplomat representing the Gambia. That's what it shows, and that's what it demonstrated. You will never see it anywhere in the world. If you objected to what the minister said, your greatest protest should have been to resign and say you resigned. You resigned as a protest of the utterances of the minister. Or what you should have done is to engage the minister directly. Engage the office of the president directly, but not come out to attack your minister. But I don't know if Gambians are watching what is happening here. Because the Minister of Foreign Affairs is the interface of the Gambia and the outside world. When you as an ambassador make a pronouncement and attack the credibility of your minister, of your foreign minister, you are indirectly attacking the credibility of President Barrow, because that is your appointing authority. And the foreign minister is appointed by no other than President Barrow himself. Therefore, what you have done is to attack President Barrow. You have told Gambians that President Barrow's appointment, that President Barrow speak as foreign minister, is not worthy of the position. That is what you have said, Mr. Ambassador. Mr. Ambassador, you did not attack Dr. Tangara. You attacked the face of Gambia. You attacked the credibility of Gambia in the eyes of the international community. You are an ambassador. You should be measured. You should be measured, and you should be calculated, and you should be strategic. You have not only attacked Dr. Tangara for saying what every other Gambian is saying, for saying what is the gospel truth, that the infiltration of the Foreign Service by political appointments is bringing the Foreign Service into disrepute, and that is factual. That is the truth, whether you like it or not. And not only is that not only is it a direct affront to the foreign ministry, but it is a blatant violation of the Foreign Service regulations. Blatant violation. And you, Mr. Ambassador, should know that. You, Mr. Ambassador, should check your ministry. When the minister said that, you should have looked around in your mission and see whether, because you have a copy of the Foreign Service regulations, and you should be able to tell, Mr. Ambassador, whether aside of your political appointment, there are other political appointments within that mission who never should have been there, because the place is not a political place. The appointment is not a political appointment. It's a technical appointment that should be manned by the hard-working staff of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Just going into logic, is it even right to develop these individuals and then you have people from outside just spring like mushrooms and going into our missions abroad, while hard-working technocrats within the foreign ministry are scrambling for places in the Foreign Service? Is that right? Is that right? Why didn't you, Ambassador, come out with credible evidence to showcase that indeed Tangara was a stumbling block to Gambians? Why didn't you? Why didn't you show us the evidence of him insulting Gambians? But you know what's ironical in all of this, Mr. Ambassador? And I'm speaking directly to you. Your response to Tangara, who did not mention you per se, who did not make reference to you per se, it shows the sort of temperament that you have. It shows the sort of emotional, measure that you would take if you were in the place of Tangara when he was being physically attacked in New York. What would you have done, Mr. Ambassador? Your minister goes out on a town hall meeting and makes a statement. You come out publicly and you attack your foreign minister, you attack your boss, you attack your supervisor. Mr. Ambassador, what would you have done if you were in the position of Dr. Tangara and you were being physically attacked in New York? You would have taken off your shoes and shirt. You would have probably even used a weapon to attack the opponent. That's what you would have done. Everybody could feel, they could feel the anger, the hatred, the animosity behind your letter. Maybe others wouldn't say it. I saw so many people in my post yesterday telling me about how powerful you are. But I'm sure you know that regardless of how powerful you are, I've never approached you for bread. And I know that power only belongs to God Almighty. I responded to somebody yesterday and I said, we have seen people who are more powerful than Alkali Conte. Where are they today? We saw the Sani Abaches of our time. We saw the Ensa Jata of our time that dubbed his name as Jesus. And when they called him, people scrambled. Where are they? I lived to saw Jesus, the former IGP of police, one time very powerful figure in Gambia. I saw him cry in open court in the High Court in Banjul. I saw him take that stand in the dock, crying like a baby, when allegations were being bandied about by the prosecution, alleging him of all sorts of crimes, including breaking and robbery. And I saw that man break down and cry. And I knew then that power belongs only to God Almighty. You could be as powerful as ever. You could be the most powerful Gambian. But I tell you today that power does not reside in you, and neither does it belong to you. Some of us will speak unapologetically, and we will speak the truth when it matters, because you don't butter our bread. You don't butter our bread, and you don't refill our oil. What you did has defied the odds. It has never been heard of in the history of the Gambia. You have broken a record as an ambassador, writing such disgusting letter to your minister. How would you have felt if your deputy ambassador had written to you in such a manner, a public letter? How would you have felt? How can you hold your staff accountable anymore? On what basis can you continue to represent the interests of Gambia abroad? Because the champion of that interest, the champion of that representation is your honorable minister, the Minister of Foreign Affairs, whom you have just disparaged on social media, whom you have attacked, you have attacked his credibility. Put his integrity on the stand. Allow him to be ridiculed and mocked. What have you achieved? What have you achieved? Can you authoritatively say that as foreign service does not need sanitization? It doesn't need sanity? It shouldn't be purged of political misfits? Can you authoritatively say so? Why couldn't you have addressed this through diplomatic channels? Didn't you take an oath of secrecy? to handle affairs of the state in a sacred manner, in a manner that's worthy of a diplomat? Didn't you? You are a political appointee. That's the discretion of the president. If the minister referred to political misfits, and you know as a matter of certainty that you are not a political misfit, why would you draw yourself into that fray? Why would you draw yourself into that fray? But a president, I believe, but before I say this, let me say this. Your actions were undiplomatic. Your actions were unambassadorial. Your actions were unbecoming of a statesman. Your action was a disgrace, a shame, an affront to the foreign ministry and by extension, the foreign service. But most especially, your skirting letter was a direct insult to the President of the Republic of the Gambia, Mr. Adama Barrow, because you have questioned his objectivity. You have questioned the basis of his appointment of Tangara as a foreign minister. That's what you did in that letter, by trying to label Tangara as a Jame enabler, a stumbling block to our democracy. That's what you tried to do. But if you are conscious, Mr. Ambassador, there's one beautiful thing that Gambia should take away from this all, is that yet again, the Honorable Minister has demonstrated the art of statesmanship by not responding to you. That was my greatest fear. My greatest fear was that the minister, Tangara, would respond to you. But he did not, because he's a true diplomat. He has demonstrated that what he said in that town hall meeting was validated and is on point. Because indeed, within the foreign service of the Gambia, there are political misfits, there are diplomatic misfits, and there are diplomats. And we know them by their actions. We know them by their fruits. And we know them by the level of their measuredness. You should never have acted in such a manner. Never have acted in such a manner. I don't know you, but I've rooted for you in the past. I've mentioned your engagement in Turkey. But you cannot attack the foreign minister. It's not done anywhere in the world. Not in Nigeria, not in Ghana, not in Liberia, not in Sierra Leone. It is the first. It is the first that we are seeing, Mr. Ambassador. And it is shameful. It is disgraceful coming from you as an ambassador, as a representation of the Gambia abroad. It is an absolute and abject disgrace. I want to read another part of the Foreign Service Regulations. And I think I've been here since 9 o'clock, 10, 11. That's 2 hours, 35 minutes. Wow. I'll just wrap up. But I just want to read this. Just give me a second. I just want to read this. Hang on a second. I'll go back to this. Sorry, I just want to read this real quick. There's something I saw that was very important. It was something I saw, but I can't even put I can't even find it now. But I just let it slide. I just wanted to read it out, and it had to do with discipline within the Foreign Service. And like I said, like I enumerated in my letter, my open letter to you, Mr. Ambassador. I think you must be credible enough to apologize to Mr. Tangara. I saw a lot of people telling me about Fatoumata Jahumpa Cissé, and I've said my response to each and every single person was that she came out and she apologized. We are not God. Who am I to say I cannot accept the apology of Fatoumata Jahumpa Cissé? Who am I? Am I God? She came out and publicly apologized. There's not a manner of insult she did not hear. But she put it all aside and she apologized and moved on. Her responsibility, her role was to say sorry. Whether it is accepted or not, that's a story for another day. But she apologized. Would you, Mr. Ambassador, would you be able to put your ego aside? Would you be able to show and demonstrate that, yes, you're infallible and you do make mistakes? Can you come out and publicly apologize to ensure that such a precedence, such an occurrence would never, ever happen in the history of the Foreign Service of the Gambia, where an ambassador will write such a scathing rebuke to a sitting foreign minister who is your direct supervisor and your boss? Would you come out and apologize, not only to the foreign minister, but to the Gambian public? Because what you have done is to wash the dirty linens of the Gambia in the public space. That is what you have done, Mr. Ambassador. Would you be credible enough? Would you have the strength of Fatoumata Jahumpa Cissé to come out and apologize? Or would you sit in your high horse? Would you sit in your high horse and continue to propagate the title that Alkali Conte is one of the most powerful Gambians alive? Power only resides in God Almighty. But I do hope that in the event that you don't apologize, I do hope that President Barrow will ensure that a precedent is set, that he will ensure that a record is set in the Gambia, where people will know who actually has authority from the people. For I believe that authority, by virtue of the power of the people given to one man to lead Gambia, to lead Project Gambia and take it to its desired destination, is Adama Barrow, President Barrow. And where President Barrow saw his ambassador publicly, disgracefully writing and attacking his minister, we Gambians are watching to see if President Barrow would take a decisive action and ensure that such occurrence would never happen again in the history of Gambia. We will be watching on the side. We will be watching on the sideline. Because an example must be set. Because the floodgates have been opened. Because very soon now, all the ambassadors will be insulting Tangara. And deputy ambassadors will start insulting ambassadors. First secretary will start insulting councillors. We've already seen them fighting in missions abroad. And now you have brought it to an ultimate low where we don't know. The missions will be turned to a boxing ring. But an example must be set. Because the Gambia Foreign Service must be sanitized. Must be sanitized. And whilst your letter was a scathing rebuke to the foreign minister, I'll crave your indulgence, Mr. Ambassador, to take a walk, take a journey into the international community and see how Tangara is respected and praised. Not because he's a Gambian, not because he's Tangara, but because of the exemplary leadership he took. because of the role he played in ensuring that the will of Gambians is respected. That the will of Gambians is respected. Are you damning the international community, Mr. Ambassador? Are you damning the international award by the United Nations, Mr. Ambassador? Are you saying it is not credible? Are you saying they just looked at, they just had a fear of Tangara and gave him such an award? Mr. Ambassador, are you aware, do you know what it takes to have an international award of such magnitude being bestowed on your foreign minister? Your letter is a direct affront to all of that. And I hope somewhere deep in your heart, you should be able to do an introspection and assess the gravity, the impact, the repercussion of your scathing rebuke to the foreign minister. I hope and pray that someday, sometime, you would put yourself in the position of the foreign minister. As an authority yourself, manning the Gambia's mission in Turkey, that you would put yourself in the very place of the foreign minister and assess the damage, how you would have felt if your subordinate had spoken to you in such manner. Unbecoming of a diplomat. How would you have felt? Again, I will say, because so many have said, and I'm putting it to you, Mr. Ambassador, because I'm sure you're watching. I'm sure somebody would bring this to your attention. It's telling me that I'm seeing 55 people, but when I'm looking at it, I've seen 5,000 people are logged on watching and listening. Well, I exaggerated, not 5,000, 4,600. I don't want somebody to go and say I lied, because I didn't lie. I logged on and I'm watching. 52 people have shared it. So I'm sure it will come to your attention, sir. And when it does, I want you to know just one thing. In summary, that power only belongs to Almighty God. Everybody, well, almost everyone that commented on my letter have said that you will not apologize because you're the most powerful Gambian, that President Barrow will not recall you, and that nothing will come out of your scathing letter because you are powerful. But I want to tell you today that power only belongs to God. And no matter how powerful you are, there will be a day and time and a moment where all of us will be equal. For dust we are, and to dust all of us shall return, regardless of power, regardless of authority that we think we have now. Your letter was a disgrace coming from an ambassador. And there's nothing more, no other word to describe it. It was unbecoming of an ambassador. It was an absolute and abject disgrace, Mr. Ambassador. And I pray that sanity will prevail. Sanity would prevail, and you would withdraw those statements in that letter. And then we will celebrate you, knowing you are human enough to accept your missteps, human enough to know that you too, as human, are able to make mistakes. I thank you guys for joining me in this program. And finally, let me make a disclaimer. I am not holding brief for Dr. Tangara. I've never approached Dr. Tangara to ask for bread, to ask for anything. In fact, if you guys want to do a survey, staff of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs will tell you that I have made sure that I have cut off all ties that I had with most staff. I think the very few that were people that it went beyond working colleagues. that became a part of my family. But I made sure I ended all relationship that I had with any staff member that I crisscrossed with at the foreign ministry, because I did not want to put them in a position where they feel they're obligated to me and cannot do things or adjudicate things in my affairs in a very objective and equitable manner. So I took a back step. And there's not one single person in the foreign ministry that can lift a hand and say that Melville called me, or Melville approached me, or Melville asked me for a single favor. My bread is buttered by God Almighty. And I know that what is meant for me will come my way. I don't fight for things. So I'm not holding brief for Tangara. But truth be told, this is a man that Gambia owe an apology. Because this is a man that could have done wrong and could have been on the wrong side of history. But he ensured that without fear or favor, affection or ill will of the Gambian people was upheld. He pulled the strings within the diplomatic community. And today, if we cannot say thank you to Dr. Tangara, it means we're distorting history. We are distorting an existential reality. And it means we as a people are not grateful. But God, above, he sees all things. I thank you guys for joining me. And hopefully, sometime soon, one of these days, I'll do a Facebook Live. I've been studying, I've been going through documents, I've been reading, I've been researching on the Janet Commission and its recommendations. Findings some of the findings I've come across are just mind-blowing. And I'm sure if I were to break it down and speak on these things, the average Gambian would be left in a state of utter shock and dismay. But I will. I may not be able to do everything at one Facebook Live or at one go, but we will serialize it and we will really delve into the Janet Commission, the recommendations, and just see, a way forward. Hypothetically, just come up with certain things that we feel is a way forward. But thank you guys for joining me, and I appreciate you all, and I say God bless. And I know somebody asked me a question. I saw it on the Facebook Live. Mel, what is the way forward? The way forward is for the Ministry of Foreign Affairs to establish a foreign service cadre, establish a foreign service academy where foreign service staff will be adequately trained, adequately equipped, prepared with the right skill and expertise to man our foreign missions abroad, and to ensure that the dictates and spirit and letters of the foreign service regulations are to a possible, standard, to as much as possible, really, be adhered to. And political infiltration into the foreign service should be kept at a bare minimum. That is the only way that we can sanitize the foreign service and have tangible returns on our missions abroad. And I hope and believe that with the pronouncements of the minister, we are able to realize that this is an existential reality. It is a problem, and the foreign ministry is on life support. And the plea of the minister to the executive by extension and to the president by extension is to allow the foreign service to thrive, to allow it to be the beacon of hope for Gambians, and to allow it to be, yet again, the admiration of the outside world. And we hope and pray that the president will listen, that political and state actors would listen, And very soon, in the not too distant future, we should be able, as Gambians, to realize a dream and have a foreign service that all of us would be, you know, would be happy and glad to point finger to. I thank you and do have a good night. Bye-bye.